Airports are full of stories, some you'll never hear, others that explode across headlines. But this one? It began with a crying baby, a tired young mother, and a flight attendant whose temper flared at exactly the wrong time. In a single reckless moment, she crossed a line so shocking, passengers froze in disbelief. Cameras were pulled out, whispers spread like wildfire, and the air inside that plane turned colder than the engines outside. What the crew didn't know was that this woman's husband wasn't just another traveler. He was the man whose signature decided the airline's future and their careers, Maya. Daniels had learned to be patient. Life as a new mother meant sleepless nights, hurried mornings, and moments of exhaustion that blurred into one another. She had booked this flight carefully, a direct trip home after visiting her parents. First-class tickets, to make the journey easier for her and her 4-month-old son. The terminal was busy that day, a constant hum of movement and announcements. She walked calmly through the gate, her baby cradled against her chest, and sank into her wide leather seat with relief. Passengers bustled around, filling overhead bins and settling in. Flight attendants moved briskly, checking boarding passes, closing compartments, and offering polite, if rushed, greetings. Maya's husband, Daniel, had insisted she travel comfortably. He knew the strain of long flights with a newborn, and though he couldn't join her this time, his influence ensured she would be looked after, or so they thought. Somewhere behind the professionalism, tension was brewing. The flight was delayed 20 minutes, and passengers were restless. One flight attendant, a woman in her late 30s named Claire, had been snapping at staff and customers alike, her smile tight, her movements sharper than necessary, when the baby stirred and began to fuss. Before takeoff, Maya instinctively began to soothe him, rocking gently and humming under her breath. The sound wasn't loud, barely audible over the chatter, but Claire's eyes flicked toward her. With irritation, that was the first sign something was wrong. The first 40 minutes of the flight passed without much incident, though Maya noticed the occasional sideways glance from Claire. When the baby cried during a mild turbulence patch, Maya was quick to use a pacifier, murmuring soft reassurance. But Claire's irritation seemed to grow. She brought Maya a blanket with a clipped tone. She avoided eye contact when pouring water. At one point, she lingered near the galley, speaking in a low voice to another crew member while occasionally glancing in Maya's direction. Passengers began noticing. The couple seated across the aisle exchanged quiet, concerned looks. A man 2 rows back raised his phone slightly. The lens pointed forward, just in case. Then it happened. The baby whimpered again, startled by a sharp ding from the cabin speaker. Maya adjusted him carefully, whispering comfort. Claire appeared suddenly at her side, leaning in with a face that looked more like anger than concern. Her voice carried just enough for nearby passengers to hear as she accused Maya of disturbing other customers and not controlling the child. The words stung, but Maya kept calm, explaining she was doing her best. That should have been the end of it. Instead, Claire reached forward to adjust the baby's position, without permission. Startled and protective, Maya pulled back instinctively. In that split second, Claire's hand lashed out, striking Maya's arm and grazing. The baby's head, a stunned silence, fell over the cabin. For a moment, no one moved. Maya's breath caught in her throat as she clutched her son tightly. The man with the phone had already started recording. A woman from the row ahead twisted in her seat, outrage written across her face. Claire seemed to realize what she had done, but instead of apologizing, she stepped back defensively, muttering something about safety, and disappearing toward the galley. Maya's heart raced, her cheeks burning. Every instinct told her to cry, to shout, to demand justice, but she said nothing. She simply pressed a gentle kiss to her baby's forehead and stared out the window, her mind already working through what would happen next. The plane landed to a tense silence. Passengers avoided Claire's gaze as they gathered their belongings. Several walked past Maya, offering quiet words of support. A man slipped her a business card, whispering, "In case you need a witness." Outside the gate, she was met by an airline representative, clearly briefed to manage the situation. The apology was rehearsed. The promise to investigate was hollow. Maya didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She simply asked for the incident to be formally documented, then left the terminal without another word. That night, Daniel came home early. When Maya told him what happened, she expected anger, and it came, but not in raised voices. His anger was cold, controlled, and deliberate. Daniel Daniels wasn't just a businessman. He was the principal shareholder and non-executive, chairman of the very airline whose staff had humiliated his wife and endangered his child. And unlike most victims of such treatment, he didn't need to beg for justice. The next morning, board members received an emergency summons. Within hours, multiple senior executives were in conference calls with Daniel, watching as he froze all discretionary spending for cabin, crew training programs, a budget worth over $12 million annually. He demanded a full internal review of in-flight conduct, immediate suspension of Claire, and a new passenger protection policy that would be enforced across every route. By the end of the week, the incident video had gone viral. News outlets were reporting it, activists were commenting on it, and shareholders were asking questions about the airline's brand image. The company scrambled to contain the damage. Claire was terminated within 7 days. The airline issued a formal apology to Maya, not as a PR statement, but as a personal letter signed by the CEO himself. More importantly, Daniel leveraged the incident to implement a mandatory training module for all flight staff on handling passengers with children and on recognizing unconscious bias. The program became an industry standard after other airlines adopted similar measures. For Maya, the victory wasn't about revenge. It was about ensuring no other mother holding her child would feel the sting of humiliation or fear inside. A place meant to be safe. The story spread far beyond. Aviation circles, parenting blogs covered it. Social justice forums discussed it, and corporate leadership seminars used it as a case study in power, privilege, and responsibility. One viral clip, the moment Claire's hand made contact, followed by the stunned silence, became symbolic of a larger conversation. How those with authority, even in small moments, can cause harm that ripples outward. As Maya rocked her son to sleep weeks later, she realized something. That day, her silence on the plane wasn't weakness. It was the pause before a storm one that changed an entire airline. And for every person who saw the footage, it carried a single unshakable question. If you witnessed injustice unfolding right in front of you, would you have the courage to stop it?